The Atlanta Falcons 2024 season left a lot to be desired, so in this video, let's go ahead and do my mock-off season for the Atlanta Falcons. But if you guys do go on to enjoy the video, hit the like and subscribe button, let's hop into it. Alright, so the way the video is going to work is we are going to be doing everything that the Atlanta Falcons are going to be doing during the offseason. We're going to begin by managing their finances in the team assets portion of the video, then we're going to talk about some of the team's free agents, who we're going to re-sign and who we're going to let walk. We'll then talk about some positional needs we need to look to address in my free agency plan, and then lastly we'll be doing 2 3-round mock drafts. With that said, let's begin with the team assets portion of the video, and this video was probably the hardest to plan for because the Atlanta Falcons are in, I don't want to say salary cap hell because that would be the New Orleans Saints, but they're really close to being in that position. As we sit here today, they have negative $11 million in cap space, and with the Kirk Cousins contract looming, it's not going to get much better. They also do not have a lot of draft picks. They don't even have their 3rd round draft pick this year, so for our 2 3-round mock drafts, we're only going to be doing 2 picks per. Now, the good news for the Atlanta Falcons is that they do have some contracts they can move around to open up a little bit of cap space. So for this portion, we're going to have to do a little bit of what I like to call contract and negotiations and gymnastics. We're going to do some financial gymnastics here, but we're going to begin by doing some extensions first. For starters, I'm going to give Drake London an extension that will open up around $2 million in cap space in 2025. I'm thinking I'm going to give him a contract worth somewhere along the lines of 4 years, $120 million. For the sake of the video, that number doesn't actually matter because it doesn't impact us in 2025, but for the sake of just having a little bit of fun, I do think he's going to get paid like potentially a top 5 wide receiver. I'm also going to give a contract extension to Kyle Pitts. While he hasn't been particularly amazing in his career so far outside of like his rookie year, I do think that he is a quality enough starting tight end in this league to warrant him getting some sort of extension. Plus, if you do actually extend him, you are opening up an additional $7 million in cap space. I'm thinking for a contract, maybe 3 years, $36 million a year. I think that would be pretty fair. The last extension I'm going to be giving out is a small extension to Grady Jarrett. Now, I had a couple options with Grady Jarrett. I could have cut him, I could have tried to trade him, or we can negotiate a potential new contract, but for the sake of the video, I decided to give him a small extension. By doing so, we're actually converting a lot of his money to signing bonuses, and so it would open up around $12 million in extra cap space. I'm thinking probably like a 2-year extension because he is getting a little bit older, and I don't want to give him like a 5-year extension and have to pay him while he's 38 years old. We're also going to be restructuring a couple of deals as well. This is going to be basically converting money into signing bonuses and pushing the money down the road. For the 2 players that I did decide to restructure, we're going to be restructuring AJ Terrell, which opens up around $10 million in open cap space in 2025. And then we'll also be restructuring the deal of Chris Lindstrom, which also opens up approximately around $10 million in open cap space in 2025 as well. When it comes to cutting players, we're going to begin by cutting off David Onyemata, which will open up $10.5 million in cap space in 2025. He's a good player. He's a quality player, but unfortunately, I just couldn't keep him. He's a really good run stuffer who hasn't been incredibly productive as a pass rusher, but in this situation, $10 million is a lot of money, and we kind of need that money right now. The next player is going to be Kirk Cousins, who I don't really know what to expect with Kirk Cousins. If you were to cut him pre-June 1st, you would actually be having a cap savings of negative $25 million, which means all that work we did to open up cap space would go right down the drain. So for the sake of the video, we're going to be cutting him as a post June 1st designation, which actually means that his dead cap would be a little bit more. Plus, I believe he has like a $10 million signing bonus or something along those lines, which would hit in 2026, which is a lot of money. But if we cut him pre-June 1st, negative $25 million in cap savings, post-June 1st, $0 million in cap savings. So it sucks, but it's probably what they might end up doing. Outside of that, you could try and trade him, but I don't think there's a team that will trade for Kirk Cousins. So the best option that is the best case scenario for the Atlanta Falcons, to me, seems to be cutting him post June 1st. Again, there really is not a positive way to spin this. It sucks either way, but by cutting him post June 1st, there isn't any sort of big cap hurt in 2025. So after all those gymnastics, we went from having negative $11 million to now having around $40.5 million of cap space to work with. Now, again, because of the Kirk Cousins contract, we're not going to be able to sign a whole bunch of players in free agency to long-term deals, so do keep that in mind. But with Michael Penix Jr.'s small contract, we can do a couple things. But with that said, let's go ahead and talk about the team free agents portion of the video. This team does have a number of free agents they should look to re-sign, so let's go ahead and talk about it. In terms of who they have as free agents, they have guys like Matthew Judon, Justin Simmons, Lorenzo Carter, Mike Hughes, Richie Grant, Rondale Moore, Kadero Hodge, Storm Norton, Drew Dowman, D. Alford, Kentavious Street, and Nathan Landman. They also have a couple other guys, but those are the big name guys, and those are a lot of really good players. In terms of some of the smaller contracts we're handing out, we'll begin with like the smaller deals. We're going to begin by bringing back James Smith-Williams on a 1-year, $2 million deal. Just a rotational defensive end that gets you a little bit of some juice off the edge. Kadero Hodge on a 2-year, $4 million deal. Very good when he's on special teams. Has just been a quality wide receiver. Typically more like a wide receiver 4 or 5. So we'll bring him back on a short-term deal. Storm Norton on a 2-year, $5 million deal. Very quality swing tackle that can play a lot of different positions. So bringing him back, I viewed was a bit of a priority. Mike Hughes is going to be back on a 3-year, $18 million deal. Now, he could get a bigger contract elsewhere, which kind of gave me a little bit of pause with his contract because I've seen some people say that he's worth upwards of around $24 million over 3 years. So I decided to go with $18 million because on Over the Cap, his projected salary was like $3 million, which I thought was a massive underpay. So I decided to go with around $6 million a year. It could be a little bit more though. But if there is a little bit more, I actually do have a little bit of open cap space at the end of the video to kind of make up for it. So if his contract does end up being a bit more, we're totally fine. We're also going to be bringing back Drew Dowman on a 3-year, $33 million deal. Really solid center who is probably the best center available in this year's free agency class. Very solid in pass protection, excellent in run blocking. I just viewed this offensive line as being kind of complete, so I didn't want to open up any holes. Drew Dowman is a very solid center who is going to be a great person to have alongside Michael Penix Jr. as being your center and quarterback combination. Nathan Landman is also a free agent, but he is a restricted free agent, so we're just going to match whatever contract is out there. So I don't have a number for that right now, but do keep that in mind that we will be making sure to bring him back as well. So after all that, we went from having $40.5 million to now having around $17.5 million of cap space to work with. Not a lot of money, but there is some flexibility there to go out there and get a couple players to add to my free agency plan. But that then brings me to the team needs portion of the video. This is where we're going to talk about what positional needs this team needs to look to address in either free agency or in their draft class. And we're going to begin with arguably their biggest need, which is going to be they need pass rushers at a very high level. Matthew Judon was brought in last year from the Patriots and was thought to be somebody who could get them close to, I don't know, 8 to 10 sacks a season, but he just really didn't work out. He did have a good end to the season where he had like a couple games with a sack, but he was never like the guy that you wanted him to be. For this team, getting a dominant edge in the draft class or just somebody who can get some pressure on the quarterback, I do view as being top priority for them. The good news is there's a couple names I really like in free agency, and there's a couple names I really like in this year's draft class. So some of the younger names already on the roster who didn't really show much in 2025 or 2024, hopefully they can take a step forward this upcoming season and actually play a role on this defense to go along with what we might do in free agency and in the draft class. I do think this defensive line could be better next year, but this was one of the worst pass rushing units of all of 2024. So if they can go from like bad to like middle to average, I think that would be a nice step forward for this unit. Because we're not bringing back D. Alford, I also do think getting a nickel/slot corner is also a bit of a priority. D. Alford was just not it at that nickel position. Falcons fans did not like this guy at all, and rightfully so. He did not play very well throughout most of 2024. On PFF, he had a 55.9 coverage grade and gave up over 76 receptions, which ranks the 3rd highest out of all eligible corners. Interceptions on the year, had 67 solo tackles. He was pretty good in run defense, I'll give him that, but when it comes to being a pass protector, protecting from, great quarterbacks in that nickel position, D. Alford was just not it. So if we can find an upgrade in free agency, I do think that should be a priority for this team. Next is safety. Because we're not bringing back Justin Simmons, we're definitely going to be needing probably a strong safety more than a free safety, because you do have Jesse Bates, who is a fantastic player, but because you didn't bring back Justin Simmons nor Richie Grant, you're going to need to find some strong safety who can come in there and play immediately. The good thing for them is that I actually really like this safety class, so with their second or whatever other pick they have, they could potentially be in for a safety, and there's a lot of names I really do like. So for them, fortunately, there is a good safety prospect in the draft waiting for them, but they're going to have to take a pick on one of those safeties. Next is wide receiver. Outside of Drake London and Darnell Mooney, there isn't anybody who I feel terribly confident in. Rondale Moore, I'm not bringing back, so that kind of takes away that potential plan. You do have guys like Ray McLeod, Kadero Hodge, and a few other names out there, but if you can find a true upgrade to find a player that can play alongside what you already have in Mooney and Drake London, that would be pretty ideal. That said, it's definitely not a priority for me. That's maybe more of a 2026 issue to deal with, but it is something that I do think you have to consider. But outside of that, I think most of the other issues on this team is just going to be adding depth, like finding a rotational corner to add alongside what you already have in Mike Hughes and AJ Terrell. Maybe ideally like a starting corner who could just be a rotational player. But again, most of those other positions of need would just be depth options. I think when it comes to finding starters, that's about it. So again, we need an edge rusher, probably a nickel, some safety help, and ideally a wide receiver, but that's probably more of a 2026 issue. But with that said, let's talk about my free agency plan. Now, because we only have $17.5 million of cap space to work with, we really cannot go out there and sign a bunch of big name guys. I was only able to bring in like one really quality free agent, and the other two are more, we'll wait and see what they potentially could become type of guys. So the one quality free agent I did want to bring in, and I've already done this guy on a couple other videos, so I kind of felt bad for using him here, but I still feel like he's an excellent fit for this team. I'm going to be bringing in Jordan Lewis on a 3-year, $24 million deal. Again, I've done this same exact contract for multiple teams on these types of videos before, and I probably will do it again in a future video, but Jordan Lewis is just an extremely solid coverage corner. He leaves a little bit to be desired in run defense, which D. Alfred is clearly better than him, but I do think that Jordan Lewis is a willing tackler and isn't afraid of contact, but just isn't really that good when it comes to tackling out in open space against a dominant running back. But that's not that big of an issue for me. When it comes to coverage, he is a really solid nickel corner. He can play slot, he can play the nickel. If you need him to, he can play a bit of safety and outside corner, but you're probably going to want to keep him more inside as a slot / nickel. This dude is a ball hawk. He gets interceptions. He makes plays on the ball. I really do like Jordan Lewis's game. 3 years, $24 million would lock him up for the future. You would have a hypothetical trio of corners of AJ Terrell, Jordan Lewis, and Mike Hughes. And I do think your secondary is looking very, very good if you are able to bring in a guy like Jordan Lewis. But that's really the only quality free agent I have. The next two players I think are high upside players, but are a little bit more question marks regarding if they can actually give you much productivity in 2025. But again, high upside guys. We'll begin by bringing in Malcolm Kuntz on a 1-year, $4 million deal. He's been somebody who I have done in other mock off seasons, but he's just a high upside player that I just don't know what I'm getting out of in 2025. But if he can return back to form in 2023, we're talking about a good player. Malcolm Kuntz had an excellent 2023 season, had around 8 sacks, looked to become a rising star, and looked to be a really good combination with what they already had in Max Crosby. Then unfortunately an injury occurred in 2024, so he wasn't able to play, which sucked for him, and obviously it sucked because he's going to be coming for a contract this year. On a 1-year deal, this will allow him to earn his payday in 2026. I think this is a Falcons team that has opportunities available for a guy like Malcolm Kuntz. I think Kuntz would be potentially interested in this job because he wants to get playing time. And I look at a team like the Raiders or other teams that might need edge rushers, and I just don't know if they'll be willing to give him the playing time that Atlanta will be willing to give him. Malcolm Kuntz, when he was healthy, was looking to become a rising star as a pass rusher. So for a team like Atlanta to take a little bit of a swing on a guy who didn't play in 2024 would make a lot of sense. Plus, it's only a 1-year deal, so there is literally no reason to not try and make this deal get done. The next player is going to be, and I hope I said this right, I practiced it, Dayo Odeyingbo. I don't think I said that right, but this is a guy who I'm going to be bringing in on a 3-year, $12 million deal. Now, he's 25 years old, plays on the Indianapolis Colts, 6'6", 286 pounds, so a very good size, very strong frame, has some flexibility to play a lot of different positions on the defensive line. Last year had a pass rushing grade of 65.5 with a run defense grade of 56.8. 18 solo tackles, 4 sacks, 10 assisted tackles, was on the field quite a bit for the Indianapolis Colts, 746 total snaps, which for an edge rusher is actually quite a bit. I think he's an underrated player that could pair quite nicely alongside Malcolm Kuntz to sort of build a rotation of edge rushers. Again, is he going to be your true edge rusher one? No, he's not going to be a top 10 edge rusher in the NFL, but he could be a rotational piece that hopefully you can supplement with a actual star in the draft. So my plan is Malcolm Koonce potentially could come back to form like his 2023 self, could get you maybe close to 8 sacks this upcoming season. Dayo can come in there, be a part of a rotation, hopefully continue to improve his game, and then hopefully you find somebody in this year's draft who could potentially be your go-to pass rusher. You pair that alongside what you already have in Grady Jarrett, I do think your defensive line could get significantly better, especially if you do get something from some of your younger guys you took in last year's draft. But that's all I really have for my free agency plan. Again, to kind of recap, Jordan Lewis, 3 years, $24 million deal. Malcolm Koonce, 1 year, $4 million deal. And I'm just going to say Dayo on a 3 year, $12 million deal. We went from $17.5 million to around $2 million of leftover cap space. Again, that money could be allocated to Mike Hughes if his contract does end up being a bit more. With that said, that is my free agency plan. Let's go ahead and hop into our 2 3-round mock drafts. Hey guys, sorry to interrupt. I'll be really quick. I did start a brand new YouTube channel called Metro Stories. I think you guys might like it. It's a channel that we simply focus on stories of NFL players as well as NFL teams. So if you guys are interested in that, go ahead and look in the description below as well as on the pinned comment where you're going to find a link for that channel. But let's get back to the video. All right, but as you can see, we are on the PFF mock draft simulator, and unfortunately the Atlanta Falcons have pick number 15, but there are a couple players who I'm looking at here, and I think we all know what position I'm going to be looking at. I'm going to be looking for an edge rusher here. Michael Williams is on the board, and I think that this is clearly the pick I'm going to go for here. So other names you definitely could consider would be a wide receiver like a Luther Burden or a Mecca Egbuka, even potentially a Walter Nolan. But to me, the answer for this one is very simple. I'm going to be taking Michael Williams here. Long arms, good frame. Believe he was dealing with some injuries this most recent year, but was playing through them. So despite any of those potential injuries, still had a very good season. 6 sacks in 2022, 6 in 2023, 5 sacks in 2024. Very dominant pass rusher. This is somebody with great size, 6'5", 265 pounds, still very young, less than 21 years of age, but will be 21 likely when the season does start. Michael Williams to me makes a ton of sense. He would give you that high pass rushing upside that this team truly does need, and I think he's a quality player. But we're back up at pick 46, and Jack Betch is available, and I absolutely love Jack Betch. That would be absolutely fantastic, but I don't think that he would be the pick here for the Atlanta Falcons. There's also Jalen Walker, who PFF has ranked 52. A lot of people have him in their first round, and I do think that he is a late first, early second round pick. Could he maybe make it to pick 46? Potentially. I'm very tempted to go with Jalen Walker. Now, Jalen Walker is an interesting prospect because he is maybe one of the best athletes in this draft class, but needs a sizable amount of work in terms of becoming an actual pass rusher that makes a lot of teams hesitant to take him. And I can understand why. I mean, he is a bit of a project player, but if he can reach his upside, this is somebody that is worth taking at pick 46 because of just what he can become. I don't know if you're going to keep him at linebacker. Maybe you use him like a Frankie Louvu, or you maybe try and do like a Micah Parsons where he starts out at linebacker and then eventually kind of moves over to that edge rusher position, and then you just let him develop there. That is definitely very interesting. There's also some safeties that I do want to go ahead and look at. Nick Eamon-Ward is the one that I'm really looking at. This is a bit more of like a box safety, which we could use, especially with Jesse Bates playing behind us. 414 snaps in the box, but also can play deep with almost 200 snaps. This is a very interesting potential player to take here, but I think I might go with Jalen Walker. I mean, like the secondary, you're going to have to find a safety. You will, and that's going to be an issue. Maybe you take one with one of your later picks. As much as I want to take safety, I think I just have to take the talent in Jalen Walker, who has such a high ceiling to be an excellent player. Freak athlete, very well sized, has the stature, just needs developments would be my best way of putting it with Jalen Walker. But he can see the field early because of how good of an athlete he is. Like, this is not a guy who you won't see on the field at all. Like, he is going to be on the field early, likely playing linebacker, but Mike maybe potentially could get some run as an edge rusher too. I see the talent on the board. I think I'm going to go ahead and have to take Jalen Walker here. But as I mentioned, they do not have a third round pick, so we actually doubled up on Georgia players, which I kind of completely didn't even think about. This would be awesome. Jalen Walker and Michael Williams, you talk about a way to just completely turn around your edge rushing unit. This right here, to me, might be the ideal path they go down. But with that said, let's go ahead and load up another mock draft. All right, so we are back in the second of our 2 3-round mock drafts, and oh wow, this board fell exactly how I think the Atlanta Falcons would want it to fall to. By the way, funny pick here, Ashton Jeanty goes to the Dolphins. That would be a crazy story to talk about. Anyways, Atlanta's on the board and Mike Green is available, and I love Mike Green. Mike Green is 17 sacks last year for Marshall. Bit of a recent riser, as you can see. Didn't really play much in 2020. Actually, didn't play at all in 2022. 2023 was okay, only 6 sacks, but 2024, this dude just went on an absolute tear. Now, the one thing I will say about Mike Green is he's very young, redshirt sophomore, 248 pounds. He's going to need a lot of mass on him. But right out the gates, you're talking about somebody who could get you close to 8 to 10 sacks a season. Like, I think this is a guy who will enter the league as just a pure second, third down guy who's going to go out there and be a pass rusher. But when it comes to run defense, right now, technique-wise, we'll need development. Mike Green is somebody who you're going to want to put on a very strict diet. This guy needs to be put on some beefy burgers, steaks. Put this guy with some mass. If he can get to like 255, 260 and still maintain his speed, his bend, his maneuvers, like this guy could be special. Now, Marshall, I know that there is some pushback about, oh, he didn't play against the greatest competition, but when he was out there in the Senior Bowl, he was absolutely fantastic. Mike Green is going to be a superstar in the NFL. I'm excited to see what he can do. Here we are, pick 46, and we took Jalen Walker last time, so as much as I would love to double dip and take Jalen Walker again, for the sake of the video, I will not be doing so, but there's a player on the board who fell yet again to the Atlanta Falcons, and I think he's a fantastic player, and that is Xavier Watts. He can play both box safety and deep. Has experience playing both. Very, 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 very good player. Great in coverage, can make plays on the ball, good tackler, good size, good frame. Not a lot of issues with this player. The only reason why he's probably not a late first round pick is just the fact he plays the safety position. So he will likely be available in the second round, and I think he's a home run hit for the Atlanta Falcons. And gotta be honest with you guys, 2 mock drafts down, and I would love both of these mock drafts if they actually happen for the Atlanta Falcons. I think they would both be home run hits. All right, but here we are. This is our 2 of our 3-round mock drafts. But Falcons fans, let me know in the comment section below what you guys think of my mock off season. What would you change? What would you keep? Love you guys. Peace.